So, Merryn and I are having this call together because Merryn has really kindly offered to come and share a little bit about her time working with me and doing this work. How are you doing? What would you like to share?
Oh yeah. This is I'm so grateful to be here and to be able to bring words through for the work that we have done. Um, the past, I think it's like 2.5 years now, maybe a little bit more that I have been working with you. Um, and when I was thinking about what I was going to share today, the sentence that came through was that my life looks completely different than when I first began. And that I wanted to share that sentence, and it feels so powerful. Um, and it also felt a little bit cliche, and I didn't want the cliche part to come through. But what it has done is brought me back to myself, to the version of myself that I remembered. And that might sound a little bit strange, but it felt like a returning and getting to know the version of myself at the edges, and that I'd always wanted to do and always wanted to welcome, but I didn't quite have maybe the tools, or maybe they just weren't quite ready. But what the 2.5 years have done is just brought it all together and brought me back to myself.
Mm. It's been such a pleasure and I can't think what the word is exactly. Working with you has been, a really deep journey, and it's really amazing to watch and to watch somebody that jumps in and really, really commits to herself. And seeing you now with your sparkle, and we had a little chat, didn't we, before we recorded, that sparkle and seeing where you're at right now is really, really special. I wonder if you'd like to share a little bit about some of the work that we've done together. What are the bits of work that you're remembering or that you're thinking of that are alive with you right now?
Yeah, I think maybe to begin with, to like fast forward. That's interesting. Rewind all that time. Um, was that I was probably, I mean, I wasn't diagnosed with anything. Being somebody that would actually avoid going and seeing any sort of professional, because that was one of my fears. But I was probably pretty depressed. I was really highly anxious. Um, and I was living in a really heightened state of awareness of everything in every reality. Parenting in, oh, I actually look back now and don't know how I was doing it, how I was getting up each day and functioning for myself, let alone for my three children. Um, but what one of the tools that was just so helpful was being in my senses, and just how incredible something so simple can be, and how no matter what I was experiencing, becoming really present in what was around me, what I could see, hear, whatever it was. I kind of don't want to say, but I feel like it actually saved me, like just that one tool. And it was in practicing that tool over and over that other things then started to come, and have more importance. I think soul retrieval has been a huge part of my own healing journey. The trauma that I experienced through my childhood, early adulthood was um, it was vast, and so the soul retrieval work that we've done together has been life changing. And is the reason that I am this version of myself today. Um, and I think specifically on the year-long program, it was having these whole weekends, these time capsules to sink into each of the topics. And what that did was give me this opportunity without judgment, because that's something that you are so brilliant at, is just to really deepen into and get to know what I liked, what I enjoyed, who I was as a person. And I remember sitting in circle that you used to run, 2 years ago or maybe more. And actually, I think it might have been the first year long weekend. And one of the questions was, who are you? And me sobbing, and because I didn't know the answer to that question. But what the year long did was give me all these opportunities to go, oh, I really enjoyed that. Or I didn't know that about myself. I didn't know I liked that thing. I didn't know I deeply connected with this topic or whatever it was. And I remember one weekend in specifically where we went on a walk. And I don't know how much to share on the specifics of what that walk was. Is that okay to share anything?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that was
So
your time, wasn't it? It was yours. I don't think it was with other people. So you can share as much as feels comfortable for you.
yeah. So the walk was walking with death and the energy of death. And I remember doing that walk, and it was just like something clicked inside. And I realized that I've been doing that for maybe my whole life. Um, and so the inner guidance that I was receiving was from that energy, but also from numerous other, but that I knew death so intimately, and that it was such a present guide for me. Um, and I just remember stepping away from that and going, okay, like that's my work, and listening to the depth and the magic and all that comes with that energy. That's where I need to be. And then having the tools to not make that depressive, as it can be for, a lot of people that walk closely in edge places. Um, Having all of the other bits that you'd shared through the year long, and within our own sessions, was like, okay, I want to do this work. This is my work. This is who I am. And I'm not going to be living in low mood. I'm not going to be numbing out. I'm not going to allow myself to I don't know what it is, let myself be squashed, I suppose, by um by everything else. It was just, it's hard to put into words. It was, the entire experience felt like a intimate and perfect way to get to know who I was and how I wanted to show up for myself and for the world and for other people that I was sharing the experience with. Um, and is wholeheartedly the reason that I am here and I am feeling so good and able to function, because I certainly wasn't able to function in day-to-day life a couple of years ago.
Mm. It's something that I'm thinking of, not just with your story, but with lots of, especially women that join this work. This question of, and there's people that join this work that are deeply intuitive, like yourself, and that came in with, oh my goodness, like how do I do this in a particular ordinary reality? How do I live this existence of a deeply intuitive, deeply feeling being? So there's a lot of people that sit in that camp. And there's a lot of people that go, I would love to be deeply feeling. I would love to know these realms and these other places. Like, isn't it? I find it very interesting that all of these people can sit together in this work and get what they need from it. But I'm wondering how that felt for you, because that was a big part of my observation of your journey of bringing, because we didn't have to awaken any magic in you. It was like it was right there. And actually with you, my observation was that we were like grounding you into the ordinary, using your senses, like you say, and allowing your magic to be. I wonder, what did that feel like? How is there any, and maybe also in the group setting, because we were working one to one, but we were also working in the initiation, the year long work together, and that was in a
Mm.
group setting. Is there anything that comes to you as I say any of those things?
Yeah. Um, a few things. One is that, so I was a therapist. I was working as a therapist. I knew the mind stuff. I had the tools to support my mind, and maybe that's why I managed to survive as long as I did. Um, my mind disappeared for a moment there. But I think what it was, and the reason that I came to you was that the confusion between realities just got so confusing. I mean, I remember the reason that I typed an email out to you in the first place was that I got to a crossing and somebody, they slapped with their hand, they slapped the side of my van that I was driving. And because I was driving straight over the crossing, because I had no idea what was this reality, other realities. And, that was a very acute moment. And I wouldn't have made the decision to drive if I thought that was going to happen. But it got really scary. Um, and yes, it was also learning to have an off switch as well as grounding down. So, like a thank you. And I really love that you'd like me to do this work. And I'm not available right now, and I would like to be a human right now. So that was so important. But also, what I realized was that being held was so vastly uncomfortable for me. So I spent a really long time building trust with other people, other women especially, and also energetically learning practices to keep other people's emotions out. And that is still an ongoing practice. That's still something I put in place every single day. Um, and what I realized in coming and doing the work with you is that I'd lived an entire life of processing things for other people, jumping in to help them because I knew ultimately it would also help me. It would help my discomfort. Um, and so therefore I was absolutely exhausted because, I was trying to do so much. It just all got so tangled, I think. Um, and sitting in circle with women where we'd got these promises with one another. I knew anything that I needed to work through, needed to voice, was not going to go any further than that space. And I really trusted that. And I knew that everybody there was practicing non-judgment. So I knew that even if, and I did work through some really big things, that they were responsible for themselves, and that we were responsible for one another, as a group. Um, and that probably has been one of the most powerful things because what that's allowed me to do is to come away and use my intuition to find those people in my everyday life. And I had friends before, but I either never shared my part, I just was the person that was hearing or absorbing all of their stuff, or I would overshare because please like me, look, I'm like you, and I would share it, and then I'd come away feeling awful. And now there's just such clear physical boundaries. Is that the right word? I'm thinking the opposite. So we've got energetic boundaries and also, I don't know, human ones,
Relational. Yeah.
where relation, that's it. So I'm able to communicate with people because I no longer have these tendencies to fall into please like me. But also the energetic ones have are, that's what I use every day the most is I'm no longer debilitated. I'm no longer flawed at the end of the day. I no longer have to sit and numb for hours in order to get up and do another day. And that's to explain to someone who doesn't experience probably is like that doesn't make much sense. But as somebody who feels everything, that feeling of debilitation at the end of the day is it comes with a dread of one, of having to do another day. Um, and now to wake up and think, I get to do another day, like, look at me. That's huge. That's huge. That's transformational.
Yeah, so special, so special. So I'm hearing the trust building, like the practices, those very, very seemingly very simple, but actually quite like really, really important trust practices and promises that we make together at the beginning of every gathering if you're in a group setting together. I was fascinated with those because I was shown when I first started doing group work that those were the things that needed to come in. And they haven't changed since the very beginning of that. And I didn't really know why I knew those were important, but I didn't really know why. And the thing that I found most fascinating is, like you mentioned, the trust building and is what happens. So, for example, instead of me saying this is a safe place or a safe space, we're literally creating it, aren't we? And we're not creating it over one weekend, we're creating it over a whole year. And I don't think you get the opportunity to well, you get the opportunity to go deeper than that if you spend even longer together. But over that year of building trust, of hearing the promises, seeing those people share those promises, and then going, okay, well, are you actually going to do that? You're seeing people make the promise, and then over that weekend, but then over the months in between, you get to observe and see and notice and be shown, oh, these women are taking this very seriously and they're taking my stories tenderly and seriously. And the what I'm trying to get to with this is that watching watching groups do that, there's a real healing of sister wound that I didn't really know was a thing, because it's not actually one of the things that I've worked on for myself. I haven't had much of a sister wound, and I think it's massive, isn't it, amongst the women that I've worked with in our groups and our circles, and there are ups and there are downs. And building those promises together and practicing it is like building a trust that I was not aware was lacking. How does it feel being in a circle of women or in a group of women now that you've practiced building trust?
Mm, yeah. So there are two things I think with this. One is that now I have built trust with the circle of women, and we're still all in contact with each other. And they would be my go-to should anything arise that I need to sound out. And that it just feels so human, like so right. And I feel so blessed because I have witnessed so many people without that. And it has made me really feel into spaces that don't feel like that. So when I am in, I don't know, any sort of event and I think it hasn't got the same feel, it's not somewhere I want to spend my time. Um,
You can really
And
judge your boundaries then, can't you? Because if you've got
absolutely,
an idea of, oh, how safe do I feel somewhere, you can then, like you were mentioning earlier, you can then judge how much I share, how much I feel safe enough to share.
yeah,
And what I witness, and I've witnessed it with you as well, is the safer you feel, the deeper the transformation, because you can really get in there, but also the deeper and easier the integration as well afterwards.
yeah. And also the, being with a group of women and being with a group of women that you trust, um, is, yeah, for me, I was then able to completely surrender and roll with the many, many processes that I went through over the year, still go through when the timing's right or when the next part's ready. Um, and that being a gift to those people also, and them taking what they need from that experience, from observing that experience, or giving them permission, not me saying, yes, you can now do this, but by me doing whatever it is that I'm working through, that then gives them permission to really surrender to. There is nothing quite like being in a trusted, held space where you're not told this is a safe space, because that's not a safe space, is it? Where slowly you begin to show each other how trusting you can be, and how much love is shared between us all. And like I said, there is nobody that I would go to over that group of women now. Yeah,
Amazing. That's so amazing to hear.
it is.
I've got a bit of a maybe a random last question, potentially last question for you. And no answer to this, but I'm just wondering, is there anything, because you've worked in lots of different places, you've experienced lots of different types of groups, of this work, of therapeutic work, of different things like that, of death doula work, all sorts of things, haven't you? And I wonder if, based on what you've experienced in my work and in other ways of working, is there anything in working with me that's different to other places and spaces?
Yes, yes. And that this is the gift. So I think for me, having really clear boundaries, so you have got really clear boundaries, and that made me relax. Like knowing where I stand makes me go, okay, so that's the limit, and that I've got that. Um, the connection that you give, um, like I felt loved throughout this entire process, and that has helped so much. That has really helped me to lean into the work. Um, but I think for me, it has been the absolute trust that you are not judging. And, I've worked with numerous therapists over the years, and you can, as an intuitive being, you can see it in their eyes, you can see their body responses, and you think, oh, okay, that's not been met well, or they're thinking something about me now, or whatever it might be. And so it stunted the progress that I was making with whatever it was at the time. Whereas I genuinely at no point have felt any judgment. And that means that then with each time I've come back for a one-to-one session, or we came back to sit in circle, it's like this expansion happened where there was just more and more possibilities to heal. And I'm just checking in. Yeah, I was just about to say, I have never experienced that from anybody else that I've worked with. And that feels like absolute truth. And that has been the biggest gift for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for voicing that. I was genuinely interested, so that's very, very interesting to me. And just on a personal note, probably the reason that the non-judgment has been so important in my work is because I was the same, that if I felt, and like you, the intuitive aspect would kick in, and if I felt like somebody was had judgment projected at me, I just immediately shrunk away in my own journey. So it was a very important thing that for me to practice. And like I share with most people, like I have a very deep practice of non-judgment, and only in these therapeutic spaces, like in my life, judgment is there. Um, but that's very, very special to hear that from you, because it's important to me personally as well. So yeah,
Mm.
I totally get why I would shrink away too. I would not feel safe enough to go any deeper if I sensed that the person I was working with brought their humanness and their judgment in that moment. So that's really
Yeah.
beautiful to hear that. Thank you so much, Merryn. Are there any final little bits that you'd like to say before we finish?
Is there? So I'm really checking in with myself here again, because I've written a book, and I wrote a book during our year long. In fact, I wrote two during our year long. One is about my year long process, and the second one is a book called Guided, and it is absolute potent magic, and it is about to come out. And I've sat with it for a year, going, should I, shouldn't I, shouldn't I, shouldn't I, going to and fro. And it's about bloody time I cheered myself on. So I'm releasing, well, looks like three books this year. But Guided will be out in a few weeks' time. So that feels important to share.
Gosh, that's so amazing. And how can people find that?
On my website, which is www.merryntonalek.com, which no one will be able to spell, but hopefully you'll put my name
I'll
somewhere.
I'll write it in underneath the video. Yeah, wherever I put it. Yeah, that's so, so special. And this celebration of you, this is something that all of this work we've been talking about, it really builds on top of the trust, on top of those practices that we're talking about. It really builds the ability then to be able to celebrate each other, like truly celebrate each other. Because when we're in circle, we've spent this whole well, what she can do is also possible for me. And what she can feel is also something that I could have experienced and I could feel as well. So
Mm.
the celebration of you writing three books is like such inspiration to me, and to lots of people watching, I'm sure. So yeah, go and get it if you've heard that and you don't even know what the story's about, but you've heard it and it's sat with you like, oh, I want to go and see that. Then obviously that book is for you. So that's exciting. Thank you so much for your time, Merryn. I really appreciate your time and your words, your energy. Thank you so much.
Hmm.